now they can get involved with antisocial activities, gangs, and different types of other criminal behaviors. This is why we focused on these two areas, that adolescents need to be given proper attention, due attention, and education. And to pursue this cause, we approached Rotary International, and we are very pleased to express our heartfelt gratitude to Rotary Club of Winnipeg and Rotary International, because they came up immediately after we approached them, and they have done their best. Over the last 1 year, we have received all sorts of supports unconditionally. Whenever we approached them, whenever we asked for advice, we got this. We thank you very much, and we are so privileged, we feel so honored that we got guardians like Srini Reddy, we got David Newman and Brenda Newman, and Cameron. He also assisted us over the last couple of months to design this project, to clean it up, and to have it perfectly done. We are so thankful to you, and this is why we wanted to sit together, that we worked differently, separately in our own spheres, but if we get a chance to sit together, to have some time eating, talking, mingling with each other and sharing our ideas, that would be a great thing. This is why I am very honored to welcome you here, and again, I am begging your pardon for being a little bit late to begin our program. Thank you very much. Hope you will be enjoying this evening. We have foods. We'll be speaking and having foods. We'll be enjoying our company, and we'll be mingling for sure. We'll be sharing our business cards and our identities with each other so that we can reconnect again and again for greater causes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin. Just a few housekeeping notes before we continue. If you have any questions at all throughout this night, feel free to ask our volunteers at any time. There are 2 exit doors right at the back in case of emergencies, and the washrooms are located upstairs. They can be reached with the stairs right outside the door. With that out of the way, I'm humbled to introduce our next speaker. We are honored to have Mr. Srini Reddy, Order of Canada, with us tonight. Mr. Reddy is an accomplished educator and a veteran Rotarian and philanthropist. In 2017, he was acknowledged with the Order of Canada. On December 30th, the Governor General's office announced that Srini Reddy would become a member of the Order of Canada. Mr. Reddy was selected as written in the announcement for his engagement in community causes as an advocate for social justice, racial understanding, literacy, and poverty reduction. Reddy, a Waverly Heights resident, has been working in the education field in Manitoba for a dozen of years, serving as a principal, chief superintendent, and consultant. Along with Karen Botting, he also created the Community School of Investigations, CSI, summer enrichment program in the mid-2000s, which has since expanded to 16 sites in Winnipeg. It is our honor to invite Mr. Reddy to deliver his speech to enlighten us about this cause. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Srini Reddy to the stage.
Thank you very much. You will all be very relieved to know that my speech is going to be shorter than the introduction. I see some very promising signs at the back, and I don't want to be the most hated person in the room. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome. On behalf of our President Roy Valens, the Rotary Club of Winnipeg, our Satellite Club, and our U of M Rotaract Club, I want to say a very sincere thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Our club is extremely honored to be a part of this wonderful initiative. We want to say a very personal thank you to both Dr. Kausar Ahmed, our fellow Rotarian, as well as Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin from from CRRIC. We are very pleased to partner with this organization in this amazing initiative. We at the Rotary Club believe very strongly in education, especially of the young, the underprivileged, and the challenged. I don't think there could be anything more noble than to try to provide whatever small assistance and support we can for these very unfortunate people. When I looked up on the board earlier on up there, I saw something about the orphans that are in the camps right now. And there's nothing more noble that we can do to, in our very small way, humble way, to provide support for these people. So thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. And we will continue to do whatever we can to be able to support the refugees in Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Srini Reddy, for your kind words. I would like to invite Dr. Kausar Ahmed and Dr. Hilal Muhyiddin to share the project before the guests now.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the disruption. I wanted to control our young people around, so apology. So housekeeping is done and very generous introduction is done. So I'll quickly get back to the business. And I thought that I should start with the brief update of what is happening with regards to the conflict and what we are actually going to do. So in the next couple of slides, I would like to talk about a number of important aspects that is happening with regards to Rohingyas, and that is how I want to start, accountability. So in terms of accountability, you would possibly hear a lot of discussion going around in the UN, rights groups, and also the various nation states, including Canada. And actually, what is happening so far is flashed on the screen, and you can see mostly the International Criminal Court has already called for a trial, pre-trial, that's what they call, and it is going to be conducting its first hearing possibly in late 2020. And Bangladesh has provided enough evidence as per their requirement. US has already put a sanctions against the Myanmar army, which they are also called as Tatmadaw, and Canadian sanction is also in place against number of Tatmadaw officials. Very recently, in fact, last week, when the 74th General Assembly is on, Gambia has declared that they would really put this case to International Criminal Justice, ICJ, and with support of the OIC. And as known, Bangladesh has provided evidences of genocide to all these bodies. And of course, last but not the least, and very important, this whole issue of the conflict has already been acknowledged as genocide. And Canada is one of the nations in the world which actually passed, unanimously passed this one in the House of Commons. Now let's talk about protection. What is happening with regards to protection of nearly 1.3 million people? So there were a number of things that is taking shape in that part of area, but I'd like to start with and apprise you that in terms of long-term resolution of the conflict, people are talking about repatriation, resettlement, and rehabilitation. So the essential problem with these three R is the priority given to repatriation aspect of the bulk of the people in the beginning. And in this regard, there were 2 MOUs signed between Myanmar and Bangladesh. In between there is an UNHCR, but there are 2 attempts taken so far. First one was taken in the December of 2018, and the last one just recently, August 2019. So with these 2 repatriation attempts, there was none to be repatriated. And Bangladesh government has already declared that they are going to resettle at least 100,000 people to a remote island, which has been developed according to their standard of living, and is called Bhashan Chor, is in the southern part of Bangladesh, in the Bay of Bengal. And finally, we don't see any initiative by any international bodies to resettle Rohingyas into any third country so far. And UNHCR has not been successful in convincing any third country to take any Rohingyas so far. And most importantly, the repatriation aspect is hinged upon the regional and global security situation. As many of you are aware that in the last UN General Assembly, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh very eloquently described that it is high time to intervene into the conflict resolution, otherwise the regional security is being impacted by the Rohingyas. So in a general summary, what we want to share with you is that the global security is impacted and regional security is impacted in 2 ways. First, if you might know, there are as good as 50 ethnic armed organizations are struggling against the government of Myanmar throughout North and East Myanmar. So out of these 50 organizations, 3 are very important, and they are working very closely with their allies to attack government posts and other areas. Most importantly, Arakan Army, as you see the slides on the left, is the most important and most strong force that is working in northern Rakhine areas. And since 14th January of 2019, this year, they have launched multiple attacks, and that is why Myanmar government declared Rakhine as a conflict zone. And actually, as we speak, just 2 weeks ago, Myanmar government lifted the internet and other communication ban out of the area after 2 or 3 months. And the whole Rakhine state was virtually cut off from the outside world. And also the question of ARSA, Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, which actually triggered the 2017 exodus that happened in August. So this group is virtually non-existent as we speak. Nonetheless, they have presence in Bangladesh camps. There are a number of reports that we have seen, and actually our field work also shows that there are presences, but how much they are effective in terms of impacting the local security situation is yet to be seen and verified. It is important also to talk about the geopolitics, because when we talk about repatriation and resettlement, this question comes into the fore quite strongly. So these three countries are actually involved in this whole area: China, India, and Japan. So historically, there are reasons Japan to be involved. So many of you might be surprised why Japan, because apparently a very peace-loving and pacifist kind of nation state. But Japan is hugely involved in Myanmar historically since Second World War and also since 80s. And it's very interesting to note that in the southern Rakhine state, where Chinese built actually a huge deep seaport in the general area Krakpu, you'll see that the Japanese investment and Chinese investment have taken place within a couple of kilometers. And Japan has already opened up a massive economic zone in that area to pump out well from Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean region. And Indian involvement in this area is also significant, because India has already invested in the Kaladang project is $1.5 billion project, and India also doesn't want anything to happen in its backyard, especially in its restive seven sister states. So these three countries' whole gamut of their involvement in this area is very important in terms of regional security as well as repatriation of Rohingyas in the future. Now let's talk about Canada and what we had been doing or we would like to do. So recently, in fact, 2 weeks ago, our own senator had been to the Rohingya camps, and we had a rare opportunity to interact with her in Winnipeg, and she had a lot of insights to share. But nonetheless, Canadian government actually expressed a lot of interest with the appointment of Honorable Bob Rae as the special envoy to the conflict. And after his travel, he came out with the huge report. It's titled "Tell Them We Are Human," and $300 million were allocated. So as of today, we only know that this funding and interaction between Canada and Bangladesh happening in the format of state to state, and there are hardly any Canadian NGOs on ground, and I'm sure that Canada has big plans in the future to help Rohingyas. It is important also to talk about host country and host country's predicament. Many of you might be aware, on the eve of second anniversary of their genocide on 25th of August, nearly 500,000 Rohingyas assembled in general area Camp 4, and it was hugely publicized, live streamed, and covered by most of the international medias. What actually they had been saying that it is the end of second year of genocide, and actually there is no end in sight of their troubles and their miseries. Nonetheless, after that gathering, what we saw in Bangladesh, there is a massive repercussion from the policy side as well as from the local population. As a result, we saw a number of things are changing in the camps, and recently Bangladesh government has already declared that they're going to put up a fence in most of the camps. And when we talk about camps, if you have any chance, or some of you might have visited, I'm sure, these are huge. Huge means actually huge. For example, the largest one is Kutupalong. It is hosting nearly 270,000 people. And just imagine if you just walk, get into one side of the camp, it takes almost full day to get out on the other side. Not by walking, actually, through car, which I actually did. So this kind of huge population, they are sitting in a very small, constrained place, creates itself is an enormous task for the NGOs and Rohingyas. Nonetheless, in our website, we published this summary, what Bangladesh actually is facing. Bangladesh is facing numerous challenges, as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh just recently spoke in the UN General Assembly, that Bangladesh as a developing nation now sees Rohingya as a challenge to its development. And this is pretty significant in terms of head of the state's promulgation, because that indicates Bangladesh is going to take some major policies in this regard. And especially if you talk about the environmental impacts and also the relationship between the host, local people and Rohingyas in the surrounding areas, these are deteriorating very fast. And I am not going to elaborate much today, but just so that you know, the local demographic changed abruptly after the incoming of the Rohingyas in those areas. For example, in Teknaf area, the local population, if we talk about the proportion, and the Rohingyas, it is now 1:8. So if there is one Bangladeshi or Bengali people, there are 8 or 9 Rohingyas in that area. So there is a huge change happening in that area, and after 2 years, what we see now is pretty alarming, and we don't know if it is going to take place 3 or 4 years down the road. So the big question is, are we looking at a protracted conflict? And that is what we we covered in our 2 years long research, which is coming out as a book in early January, and we have given some information in your folder. If you are kind enough to buy our book and research, you'll see we have addressed this question in numerous ways. First, as a researcher in peace building and conflict resolution, we think especially that it is going to be a protracted conflict. And previous researches in human displacement also shows that if the displaced population are not being taken to their original place within the first 2 years of displacement, then they are not going back anyways. So if those research shows some lights on this issue, we are talking about a huge population, nearly 1.3 million population living in this area for a very long duration. It is important that we also share with you in terms of Bangladesh's position in terms of resolution of the conflict and the displacement. So it's a crowded slide, I apologize, but I just wanted to put everything together so that you can see the things in perspective. You see, the first 2 points that the Prime Minister of Bangladesh has put up in UN General Assembly, these are very pragmatic and very timely. But our question is how, from international community perspective or from outside perspective, we are going to, or we are being able to change the attitude of Myanmar. Myanmar is a sovereign nation state. According to UN Charter and all the instruments that we have in international politics, it is possibly very difficult to change the attitude of a nation state which has committed genocide intentionally. So we are just critiquing at this point of time that how actually things should be done to change the attitude of state of Myanmar so that they take back Rohingyas. The third point is very significant, and we have actually written in our book that we are also supporting an international intervention in the state of Rakhine in terms of creating a safe space, whether it is to be monitored by the military forces or the civilians. That remains to be seen and discussed in the future, but we strongly support that without this, no Rohingyas would ever be wanting to go back to their lands. And of course, the fourth point is very important, as the Prime Minister highlighted, that international community must ensure the root causes of Rohingya problem, which is actually the statelessness of this whole generation or the total number of people. So how to address statelessness with regards to Myanmar, it is, as of today, is a very difficult question, because if you want to change something in terms of statelessness, then Myanmar has to change its 2008 constitution. And changing the constitution in the parliament, when you have 25% military personnel sitting in that body as a member of the parliament, and you need more than 75% vote to pass a bill, that is really not going to happen. So this is the gamut of the problem that the statelessness of Rohingyas I think is not going to, and we think is not going to be resolved within next couple of years. So as we spoke, and we must speak about the resolution of this issue, and if we are only talking about repatriation, let's have a summary here. For example, there were 2 repatriation treaties that took place with regards to Rohingyas and Bangladesh. One is in 1978 and other one is 1993. So we have done a calculation from 1993 up to 2003, within the purview of the second MOU, as good as 203,000 Rohingyas went back, and 36,000 remained with the refugee status given by UNHCR. So the point is, if it takes 10 years to repatriate, let's say 200,000 people, now calculate how many years it will take to repatriate 1.3 million people. We are talking about more than 5 times. And also, please be aware that the rate of birth in the camps as of last 2 years, 60,000 per year. So we are talking about the adding figures of this human being in the camps in a very large number. And even if you talk about repatriation with the number of 1,000 per day, it will take more than 30 years to repatriate all these Rohingyas from this land. So actually repatriation is a very difficult scheme and a very difficult endeavor that international community and like-minded states might have to work out. So it is all about our rationality of having undertaken this project. Why to educate Rohingyas? We were asked, I was personally asked by many in my close family members in Bangladesh, here as well as in Canada, and as I spoke and as I presented in many of the forums, that why should we educate Rohingyas? Here are the reasons. Because we think this particular group of people were historically deprived and they don't deserve discrimination as a human being. And just mere as a human being, they have human rights. We think if we educate a group of Rohingyas, because our target group is only adolescent female and male, so we think it will reduce vulnerability to radicalization. This word you will see popping up in the social media and policy discussions, especially in the West, whether Rohingyas are being radicalized. So we are not answering this question today. We have addressed it in our book, but just to tell you that education is possibly the only tool which can be used to do counter-radicalization, anything that you come up with. Many times, many of the news outlets termed Rohingyas as time bomb, sitting time bomb, because of the same factor, radicalized and being grievances, and if they are trying to do something problematic in terms of armed attack and anything else, then how to really talk to them or deal with them. And because we think education is, again, the finest tool. And remember, since 1982, ladies and gentlemen, the Rohingyas, when they were made stateless in Myanmar, since then, there are whole generation, none of them could go to schools. None of them. And when we actually, if you go and talk to some of them in the camps, you'll be so surprised that an overwhelming number of them were educated in traditional, home schools or madrasas, and the teachers, and I have a clip at the end of this session I'll show you. I was talking to one of them, but the whole generation has been left out without any proper education. When we say proper means, grade 1 to 10, and you have a certificate, and you have a, life in the future to work somewhere. That's what I mean proper. So this whole group were educated very much, intentionally, uneducated, and they do not have access to anything else other than their religious, some of the books. And of course, to empower them, and so that they become resilient, and not, it's absolutely important that we should instill hope in them, because if they are frustrated, they will create more issues when they are living in Bangladesh. For example, many of you might have heard this girl's story within the last couple of weeks. Her nickname is Khushi, and I have never met her, of course, but why did I pick this story to share with you? Because she was studying in a local university in Cox's Bazar district, and she of course worked with a number of NGOs. And when the news got out, because she gave interviews to a number of channels and all, that she's a Rohingya, suddenly we find the university authority decided that she should be suspended from all kind of education from the university. So this is because she didn't use her Rohingya identity. She admitted into this education system with Bangladeshi identity, which is somehow very common, those who came earlier. So what we are trying to do with our humble project at this point is to bring and instill hopes into those people, those who are trying to get out of that vicious cycle of undereducation and without any education. UNICEF is, of course, the lead agency there, and I had long meeting with UNICEF and Save the Children when I was in Bangladesh in April this year. And what they are saying that the adolescent group is actually the group that never been addressed. Though there are a number of organizations and schools, those who are addressing children like from the age of 4 and 10, but this particular group, aged specifically from 13 to 17, are totally left out. And they are also worried about engaging them with some proper educational tools and other stuffs. Nonetheless, UNICEF is the largest primary education provider, and something to talk about what they teach actually. So I was very curious. I spent a couple of days going from camps to camps and attending some of the classes just to see what is the curricula and what they teach. Because as you see, there are more than 1,200 schools, learning centers, and there are 140,000 children are being taught. So what I actually witnessed is there is no set program. UNICEF has a guideline and people are using those curricula, but there is no standard procedure what will happen after grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 3. So here is our project in brief. We wanted to use adolescent non-formal education model in the beginning, and we are going to develop in phase-wise. And actually, I have to acknowledge Dr. Hilal's contribution in developing this project from the ground up. He has a lot of experience working in this sector, and he is going to be our project lead here. And this is how actually he planned, and I'm just sharing with you. The most important challenge that we are going to face is to develop a curriculum. We don't have any curriculum. And at this point, we are in touch with Bangladesh government and UNICEF so that we can work collaboratively, but we have not secured their commitment as of yet. So developing a curricula in the beginning would be the major challenge that we foresee. And our basic target is to focus the females of that age, because we think they're the most vulnerable. And you can see all these reports in the newspapers about the trafficking and other aspects, and that is why we targeted females of that age mostly. It's a pilot project with $50,000 US, and as Dr. Hilal mentioned eloquently, that we are simply grateful, and me being a Rotarian, and I'm really grateful for the support of our club and the Rotary International, and with all the beautiful people that we sitting here with us. They have supported in launching this project, and we have planned, as you see on the screen, in 4 phases, and our target is to have this $50,000 to start with. And in the next couple of years, we want to expand it if we have more partners and like-minded groups, so that this pilot project can change into a bigger project. So this is how our partnership works. Funding organization is Rotary International, District 5550. Local sponsor is Chittagong Rotary Club, because as you know, within this model we have to have a local club. And in the implementation part, we have 3 NGOs, and 3 are located in Bangladesh, and we are going to do it from here. And most importantly, CSI Myanmar is one of the very interesting NGO, because they operate both in Myanmar and Bangladesh. And after a lot of negotiation, they have agreed to work with us. And our vision is, with this project, maybe in the future when the situation changes in Rakhine, we would like to open up school in Myanmar as well, especially in the Rakhine state. So we have a book upcoming. And ladies and gentlemen, we have given you some information in the folder. Please buy a copy, because all the proceeds will go to these projects again. So the book is going to be available in early January as per the publisher's commitment, and we're going to launch a ceremony and opening a book launching event, and I will again get back to you and secure your time. I would like to end my part of the presentation with this profound message, we shall overcome. Although popularly known in the U.S. During the civil rights movement, and especially Martin Luther King. But I was going through this whole paragraph this morning when I was preparing the slide, because it resonated so well with me and so well with these projects and the target group. And this is one of the reasons that I want to share with you a small, tiny video clip, and in a very unprofessional way is going to be presented before you. I beg apology, I didn't have time to do it professionally, but you'll get the message here. So after this clip, I'll say goodbye, but here you see what I meant when I said we shall overcome. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience and for your giving attitude and coming here and contributing towards this cause. The most important thing that I learned during this whole period of my involvement with this project and this research is education is possibly the most valuable thing that we can do as an educated person to others. We can have a lot of money, we can provide all other amenities to life, but providing education to these particularly depressed and helpless group of people is possibly the biggest thing we can achieve. And thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Dr. Kausar Ahmed, for sharing your thoughts and plans to extend education services to the Rohingya adolescents. Now seems like a good time to take a brief intermission before Dr. Mohiuddin gives his speech. At this time, we would ask you to please help yourself to the food that has been prepared today. We will continue with the program and the speeches after the food has been taken and everyone is seated so as to not disrupt any more of our speakers who are coming forth. Thank you.